Do you need encouragement to turn tragedies into your own triumphant life story? If so, this podcast is for you. Listen to powerful guests who have persevered through challenges so you can gain strength to build your championship life. The host of Professor of Perseverance podcast, Dr. James Purdue.
Hey, come on in. Let's have a good old time. Let's get some encouragement. Let's get fired up. Let's get motivated, get inspired. We're going to go with another guest again. Let's come up with, a form of, overcoming adversity. Finally got the mind straightened out, per se. And, going to provide you some examples on what you can do to better prepare yourself as well. And so I'm Dr. James Purdue, the Professor of Perseverance. Thank you for coming into the Professor of Perseverance podcast. This podcast couldn't have made it without you. Well, and the guests, because y'all get tired of just hearing me. All right. So today our guest, we're going to talk about the mindset. The mindset. I mean, this is going to get you through a lot of things. All right. Today our guest, well, he went on and said his 15-year-old son innocently but accurately questioned his cynicism and negativity towards dad. Okay? Woo! Seeming to bring out most situations. It brought our guest to a crossroads. Crossroads. There we go. In 2020, as the world was experiencing a new time like no other, he had the unique blessing, Eric's I like their blessing of spending an entire year marinating his brain in a spirit of gratitude and appreciation. The author of the book, I Can Appreciate That. Welcome to the show, Stephen Crane.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm blessed, man. Got up again today, and I've already done one podcast with the woman in the UK, and now we're working on number 2 and get fired up with you now.
Amen. Thanks for having me.
So, no. Thank you for sharing your valuable time, insight, and to help people today may come in listening. Definitely the people in the future that come in listening on the replay. Thank you again. All right, now let's get into this because I asked this question to y'all for air. Let's ask it now. How does it feel when your 15-year-old is trying to tell dad how he ought to be doing? And, a lot of parents, they don't take a lot of criticisms from their children. So how does it feel when it come back to you that he's being the adult in this time frame?
Well, it feels like a dagger in the heart is what it feels like. Back about at the very end of 2019, right before the whole world shut down for COVID, I was having a conversation with one of my 2 children. I have 2 sons who are now 16 and 14, but my oldest son at the time, he and I were having a conversation, and I don't even know exactly what we were talking about, but in that exchange, he said something to me and I said something back to him, and his response to me was, "Dang, why do you always have to be so negative about everything?" And a lot of times when your kids say things to you, it's easy enough to sort of dismiss them and say, "Oh, because I'm the parent and as I said so," or whatever. But in that particular moment, what he said to me was so true and so convicting that it just sort of stopped me. And I didn't. The worst part of that is that I didn't even actually have an answer for him. I knew that he was right, but I didn't have. I didn't know what to say to him. So I went away and I did a lot of thinking. And actually, I spent the entirety of 2020 sort of thinking and researching. And I'm a writer by trade. I write advertising. And during the pandemic as a freelancer, I also ended up having the hidden blessing of a lot of extra free time, as everybody's corporate reality sort of changed and shifted. I had a little less work to do. So I had some free time, and I decided to fill that free time looking for the answer to his question. And so the result of that, after 14 months of thinking and writing and researching, was this book, which is essentially a collection of 8 or 9 autobiographical essays which look at events from my life, which can be anything from very small things to life-changing things, health, career, relationships, etc. Looking at things that I originally thought of as negative, and to which my original response was, man, I don't appreciate that. That's frustrating. I don't like that. I wish this wasn't like that. Finding the hidden blessings in all of those things and realizing how in all of those situations, there actually were these huge blessings that were always there. I just didn't see them. Sometimes you can't see them because, you're living in the moment or whatever, and you need time to find them. And, sometimes it's just a matter of a change in perspective.
Yeah, I really like when you said find the hidden blessing, because sometimes that thing is so hidden, so hard, so far back, so well hidden. It takes a while for it to find it, but it also gives us time to marinate and think about what we're looking for out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes they're right there for you, and it just takes a minute. And sometimes it's years and years before you can look back at something and go, oh, wow. Well, because that happened, this job came into my life, or this relationship came into my life, or I wouldn't have all of these things if the road didn't fork in this direction.
There's a story, and it's about an anonymous writer. No one's got credit for it that I know of. And I forgot the whole thing per se. I don't know if the whole thing off the top of my head, but paraphrasing, the husband was down in the dumps, and he wrote, "What a year we've had. I can't believe it." And then he talked about all the negatives. He had like 4 or 5 bullets, but one's like, son was in a bad car accident. He was hospitalized. Our house burnt. But then the wife was looking over his shoulder, watching him write that, and he put on there at the bottom how bad of a year it was. But she took the letter and come back, and she said what a year it was, and wrote on it what a year it was and everything. Our son was in a bad accident, but he lived and survived. Yes, our house had caught on fire, but we had great insurance that actually built the house bigger and better. And everything was, he talked about losing the job, but you hated that job anyway, and you got a better job. And then she puts on it, what a great year it was.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. So it's the way you frame it and look at it and hunt for those blessings. Yes.
That's 100% right. It all comes down to a matter of perspective.
All right. Now, so you said 14 months of marinating your brain into this spirit of gratitude and appreciation. How did all that lead from one point to another? I know you got some questions over here you had listed with some, and I'll ask some 2 or 3 here that I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. But
sure.
Well,
so to speak to the whole marinating your brain sort of aspect, it's no surprise that sort of the things that you spend your time with sort of become the voices in your head, right? So if you spend a lot of time listening to the news, or listening to podcasts, or listening to, music, or, politicians, or whatever it is that are the voices in your head, that becomes what you hear, and what you hear all the time becomes what you think, and becomes what you believe in. It becomes how you act. And so as I was spending all of this time, a lot of the stuff that I knew that I wanted to write about, it was sort of in my brain, and I just had to go get it, right? And sort of think about it and organize it and put it down on paper. Some of that stuff I had to go and talk to other people. Stuff from my childhood, I had to go back and have these conversations with my parents, or with other folks, and sort of fill in the blanks. And so that whole process, whether it's spending time with yourself or spending time with other people, when your topic is gratitude and appreciation, and you know that you're trying to get to the hidden blessings, and that's what you're trying to focus on and what you're writing about, that becomes what's in your brain. And over a period of time, if you spend an extended period of time like that, in my case over a year, it fundamentally shifts how your brain thinks. It changes your perspective, and you start to see things from that perspective more as a default than you did ordinarily. It's funny because my son, if I asked him now if I was a less negative person, if I was fixed, he probably would not say, oh yeah, he's a completely different person and he's not negative and he's not cynical. And he wouldn't be wrong about that. I'm probably not a different person, but I absolutely have a different perspective, and I'm slower to be angry, and I'm quicker to find blessings and quicker to see the brighter side and the blessings and appreciation stuff in there.
So now your cynicism is in positive manner.
I hope. I don't know if you can actually cure cynicism permanently, but
hey, now that last minute and a half when you talked about, depending on what you're putting in, basically is what you're going to turn out, come out with. So that's the title of your next book is Marinating My Brain, and there's a minute and a half of what you can build on writing right there. So,
I'll take it.
So yeah, I think that would be interesting to do that. I think it would be. So, all right, and so yeah, and like always, it's going to be a building process throughout your life, because again, I'm not going to be 100% positive, 100% fixed. I'm going to drift back a little bit, but as soon as I drift back, I got to realize it, snap out, and move the correct way. So yeah, don't beat yourself up if you fall back. And
that's right.
From there. So yeah. So now here's a question. I guess you would. Is these the titles? These questions? Anything you got on your pod match? Why couldn't I be born normal like everyone else? Is these questions have anything to do with what's written in your book? A chapter or anything like that?
Yeah, they absolutely do. So each of those sort of corresponds to like I said, there's 8 or 9 different chapters in there, and it's everything from small stuff like jobs to like big stuff like huge medical challenges or losing my sister to cancer. But it runs a whole gamut of stuff, to things like joining the PTA or coaching Little League Baseball.
And now we're talking. We can get into some baseball talking. You can see us sports stuff behind me, boy. We can really get into some baseball topics here. We have to do that on a different podcast.
No, I'll tell you what, man. Spending 10 years coaching Little League Baseball, you'll learn more about life than just about anything else.
I've coached not Little League, but what they used to call, I don't know what to call it now, but it was minor league baseball for a while. Even the pitching machine was the pitcher for that league. Skipped minor league, but then got into Babe Ruth 13 to 15-year-old and got to eventually doing 16 to 18 and coached high school some. I've never done Little League. I don't know if I can stand with all them parents the way they are. Whoo!
Yeah, it is something else.
They need to marinate their brains before they come to a game and realize that their son more than likely is not going to be the next whoever, and let them play and enjoy. And don't get me wrong, somebody's got to be the next one, but it's not all the parents out there.
That is correct. No, we were very blessed. I coached my sons basically from the time that they were about 4 till about 13 or 14. And we were very blessed to be in an organization, in a group that was not the super competitive, cutthroat, people losing their minds over, 7-year-olds and stuff like that. And but then we would travel and we would play some of those teams, and you would get context. You take those kids out into the bigger world, and you see some other things, and it's a good opportunity to teach.
Yeah, exactly. I was getting ready to say it's a teachable moment for you to talk to the kids and go talk to the parents and say, I'm glad you're like you are, not that you're pouring them out over there, but yeah,
correct.
A lot of teachable moments from there. So there was one, my brother was telling me, he went to go watch a Little League ball game, and he said the ex-wife, ex-husband were there, and she's been called the police because the ex-husband ain't supposed to be so many feet beside her. And instead of just, and of course, he's pushing the limit, I guess, on how many feet he's supposed to be. I don't know. And go to the other side of the park, and both of you watch little Johnny play and encourage him. But they brought it to be about themselves. And so those parents need to marinate their brain to have a better understanding of gratitude and appreciation.
Absolutely.
So, so all right, let's get back on topic since we jumped off with the little league stuff there. But I can talk baseball with you. So, all right, now here's one question. Here is I like again. Why couldn't I be born normal? And now we have to define what do we consider normal, like everyone else.
Right. So, well, and that's actually you sort of with your follow-up question to take me to the revelation and to the end of that, which I'll get to. But so I don't know if you are familiar with, or if your audience will be familiar with spina bifida. Do you know what that is?
Spinal bifida. I'm a spinal cord injury. I don't know if you know. I got my neck broke playing football. So yep. So I've
Yep.
been to other rehabs and stuff. So I met spinal bifida people. Got spinal bifida friends. Yes.
Yeah. So for those who might not be as aware, spina bifida is essentially a birth defect where when you're born, the base of your spine is exposed and it's not necessarily fully formed, which means on the very first day of your life, you have to have a surgery to close that essentially exposed sac of spinal fluid. And if you don't, basically you die, right? So you're having surgery on day one. And the inevitable result of that surgery is some degree of nerve damage, and it sort of affects mostly your lower extremities. A lot of people who have spina bifida end up living their lives in wheelchairs. They aren't able to have children. They have very complex and complicated, difficult lives. I am super, super fortunate in that I have a pretty mild case of it, but it still ended up being sort of a defining thing in my life, to the extent that I was probably 30 before I'd had more birthdays than surgeries. And I was the kid who went to school in a wheelchair sometimes, or on crutches, or, looked weird, or, walked weird, or I was the weird kid, right? So, that is what it is. And, you grow up like that. You go through elementary school and high school and whatever. And kids at a certain age are not very sophisticated, and they can be very mean, and you sort of become who you are, which if you spend your whole life with the same kids from kindergarten through graduating high school, you sort of become cemented in a lot of those kids' brains as what you were when you were 6 or 7, which can be kind of hard to outlive, right? So that's sort of the context for why could not be normal, all the challenges that come with that, and the frustrations and difficulty breaking through and having people see you as a normal person, right? And so to the extent that, when I graduated high school, I could not wait to go to college anywhere other than where I lived, just sort of to start over. Because at that point I had sort of normalized, through some revolutionary surgeries and things like that, which are also pretty awesome stories that I cover in the book. I had become outwardly much more normal, right? It was harder to tell that I had, these significant issues, so I could sort of start over. But to go all the way back to your question, what I found about being normal is that while I spent so much time being frustrated about why can't I be normal? Why can't it just be the way it is for everybody else? One of the most amazing things that I've learned through the experience of writing this book and talking to people about it is the extent to which nobody's normal, right? Everybody has something that makes that, whether it's visible or invisible, everybody has something that makes them feel more or less exactly that same way. That, oh my God, why is this happening to me? Why am I the only person that feels this way, or has this thing, or does this, or is affected by this? Basically, nobody's normal and everybody's normal, right? It just goes right back to your question of what is the definition of normal. And when you come to that understanding that there kind of isn't a definition of normal, and it just is sort of how you end up being okay with who you are, your life changes completely. And being able to have that experience and share that sort of empathetically with other people has kind of been, a sort of life-changing gift.
And I had a question, and here it goes. Okay, that you were talking about, you just couldn't wait to get to college, to get over and experience new people and everything like that. So, as you was going through high school, did you send a spreadsheet around asking where everybody was going to college so you knew where to avoid?
No, but so I grew up in the Atlanta area, and a lot of those folks went to the big state school here in Georgia, and I I chose a different path, a place where I was pretty sure that I wasn't going to end up seeing a lot of those folks, and that wasn't the primary reason, but I was very glad to end up in a place. I went to the University of South Carolina and was very glad to end up in a place where those people were meeting me for the first time, and I was sort of a clean slate, and I could be to them what I was from that day, not from what I was when I was 6.
There you go. Yeah, I was just thinking, you're the point again, what is considered normal? And you're right, everybody has something. It depends how much everybody gets to see of it to know what you have or don't have. And then you're right, children are horrible some ways, bullies some ways, but then you got those others that are just honestly, brutally honest, and they don't mean any harm. And so you got to, separate those people from the bullies and the cruel people. They're curious and they don't know how to answer a question or ask the question. So they ask it just point blank.
You're absolutely right. And that's something that you don't get a clarity on until you're much older, because you can't, as a child yourself, you can't distinguish the difference between somebody who's being mean out of spite and being mean out of ignorance or curiosity, right? It all feels the same, when.
Yep. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah. A child doesn't understand the difference. So yeah, I can see that. Now here's a question here that I'm interested in is this goes back. This is not what I signed up for. What now? I mean, we're put into a lot of situations that we didn't sign up for it. Now, those same people say we play the hand that's dealt to us in life. And so what do you say about that? That, yeah, I didn't sign up for this job, or so what now?
Yeah, so one of the biggest unexpected successes I've been able to be a part of was I actually got pretty involved with my kids' elementary school, and we were we were part of we joined the PTA, and we go to school and you do all the things, and we encountered another group at the school, which was essentially the foundation, which sort of helps raise money for the capital improvements to the school, things that the PTA doesn't do, right? So, if they need new infrastructure or new gym equipment or resources, whatever, you sort of help raise money for that. This school happened to be a Title I school, which has its own funding challenges, and you're not dealing with people with a lot of deep pockets and stuff like that. But I started getting involved in that organization, and in the second or third year that we were involved, the president of that organization decided that it was time for him to move on to something else, and he left. And the remaining board members of that organization sort of decided unanimously amongst themselves that I should be the person to replace him, without really telling me, but it was basically a voluntold position.
Exactly.
Yes. So I was nominated and inaugurated in somebody's kitchen that night, and they basically said, "Here you go. This is, you're going to be the person to. We think you'd be great at this. Go for it." And I didn't appreciate that. I did not want that job. I was not seeking that job. I was a little afraid of that job. There were a lot of reasons why I was not just running toward an opportunity like that. But what it gave me was this amazing opportunity to work with people that I already knew and trusted, but then build these relationships beyond that to sort of do something amazing for not only my own children, but like hundreds of children in this environment. And so I served in that role for a couple of years, and again, this is a Title I school. We set this goal to bring a new playground to the school, and we did fundraising, and we tried to get grants, and we did all these different programs and contests, whatever. And we're literally nickel and diming our way to what is like an $80,000 goal, which seems pretty unrealistic and unattainable. But at the end of all of that, through relationships and a lot of groundwork and learning how to take on something like that, and sort of being the person who got to go in front of a lot of people and explain who we were and what we were doing and why it was important and why people could get involved. We ended up raising all of that money in like 2.5 years and brought like an $80,000 playground to a Title I school for hundreds of kids.
Awesome.
So yeah, so that's a job I never wanted. But there's like, that playground stands as like this monument to appreciation that will be there for, hopefully, a decade or, more, whatever, that you can look back at and go, that only exists because we took this on and made something happen.
All right, we're back. Technical difficulty. I'll have to go back and edit right there at the end. But yeah, we fought the big battle and won. And so it's good when you can feel so great when you can, go after what seemed unattainable. And then it may take 2 or 3 years, 5 years, and you finally get there. That feels so good. And again, the blessing of serving, let these other kids play in years to come is a gratitude in itself. So
Absolutely.
Hey, now here's another one that I like here. Why can't I get just one win? I just need one.
You want to talk about baseball? So here we go. All right. So in the summer of 2019, in the early summer of 2019, my youngest son, the baseball team that he was on, I was basically his coach all the way through from like the time that he was 4 till 13 or 14. The team that he was on at that point, they got a chance to go play at Cooperstown, which for anyone who doesn't know is like one of the baseball meccas of the world. For Little League baseball, it doesn't get any better than that. That and the Little League World Series are basically, the two-headed Mount Rushmore of Little League baseball. And so all, thousands and thousands of kids, dream of playing there. And, some of them get the opportunity to do that. And he was on a team that got that chance to do that. And for people who don't know about Cooperstown, there's basically like 3 groups of teams, right? There are like world beater travel teams that go in there with the absolute realistic expectation of winning the whole thing. There are teams that are like, oh man, we think we're pretty good, and we think we can win some games, and we're going to go and have some fun. And then there are teams that are just there for the experience, and think that whatever happens is fine, and they don't have a realistic expectation of being champions or something like that. We didn't actually know. We knew we weren't in that first group. We didn't know whether we were in the second group or the third group. Based on the team that we had and the experience that we had. Turns out that we were definitely in that third group. We played, I don't know, 7 or 8 games and had some winnable situations, but we ended up going 0-7. We spent a week, and everything from we ended up playing one of the number 1 seeded teams and got destroyed like 20-4 or something like that. Something that wasn't all that fun. And then we had a couple of games where we were actually ahead and we had a chance to win, and they kind of slipped away. But we ended up spending a whole week where we didn't win at all. And so at the end of that experience, we, as a coach, you know this, the replay in your head can be brutal, right? You sit there and you go, oh my gosh, if we had just done this one thing, it would have been different. If we had just done this different thing, we would have gotten a win. Why? That, we waited for years to have this experience. And on the back end of that, I'm spending all this. I actually lost sleep for a little bit after that, thinking about why could we not just get one win? Why could our time at Cooperstown not just include one win that we could have to, we won a game, And so there's my cynical, negative mindset. You have the variance, and it's, if that's what your takeaway is, man, that's negative. That's cynical. That's sort of depressing that you're missing it, right? Meanwhile, my son, who was the one who was on the field, who's having the experience and who's, going through, and he's having essentially the week of his life hanging out with his little band of 12 baseball brothers, their little family, and they're having a great time. And, at the end of all of that, so I don't know if you've been or if you talk to people who've been, but it's sort of a whirlwind. You spend a week doing a lot of stuff. And even if you go with your own child, you don't have like a whole lot in a quiet moment. And, he kind of looked at me and he said, "That was fun. I love you." That was his takeaway, right? So that's a 12-year-old kid who had the same experience that I had, who I sat there and went, dang it. Why could we not get one win here? His experience, his takeaway was, that was fun. I love you.
See, there's your one win right there.
And how
for him to say that fun and he loved you, and there's your one win. So
absolutely. So, but I mean, who's the person that is the great appreciator in that situation, right? That is out of the mouths of children is the truth and the wisdom that we should all be listening to. I'm the one in that situation who has, so much left to learn, and my 12-year-old totally gets it.
See, depending on how again, I don't have any children, but depending on I was a teacher and a coach for a long time, but a lot of these kids don't have the filters in them like adults do. And so, like you said, they're looking at it as, man, I got to play with my baseball brothers all week long. I got to stay up late. I got to eat hot dogs all day long. And this is the best time ever. Thank you, Dad. I love you. And so if we need to open our eyes more and appreciate what they're sharing with us, because one day they're going to grow up and have that filter and they're going to miss it.
Absolutely.
And it's sad that we grow up like that to become the adults, and then we miss out on these stuff when we were younger. So
100%.
All right. Last question I ask here on this one here is, and I want to see what you say about this, because then I'll tell you what I've learned from others, what they told me. Why is God denying or ignoring my prayers?
Oh man. So how long you got? Yeah, that could be a very long story, but I'll try to condense it.
Yeah, we need the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. That essentially is one of the longer and more meatier and heavier chapters in this book. I can appreciate that. Centers around my experiences with cancer. And so in that instance, that question is very much about my desire for God to help intervene and save the lives of people who I care about, who are suffering from cancer. My sister, who was about 2 years older than me, she actually passed of malignant melanoma when she was 23 and I was 20. And so up to that point, I had a pretty healthy relationship with God. Grew up in the church, and had pretty standard experience, and would say that I had a healthy relationship with God. At that point, when you pray as hard as you can for something that you want more than anything in the whole world, and it doesn't go your way, that can have a significant impact. And in my instance, it basically broke my faith, and I kind of walked away. I pretty much said, all right, well, I mean, if that's how this is going to go, I'm out of here. Thanks for nothing. Right.
It's hard, bitter pill to swallow.
Absolutely. So as I grew older, I had I guess I would say misfortune to, and probably everybody is in this situation. You know, we've all been touched by cancer, either directly or indirectly, unfortunately. Had the misfortune to know several people who are near and dear to me who have had cancer. And in a number of instances, those people, whether it was my sister or a good family friend of ours, or a young child who played in the league with my son, who, got cancer at the age of, he passed at the age of 9. All of those people, I prayed as hard as I could for God to help and do something. And it seemed like the answer to that was, no, you don't get what you want. So that's the heart of that question. Why is God not answering my prayers? And whatever. As I've now I'm nearing 50, and I've had more experiences. I've actually got to experience the amazing power of prayer and faith in some of those instances where some of the people that I care about have seemingly miraculously come through cancer with they're clear, they're healthy, and I would say they were healed, and some of that feels completely miraculous. So I have a different perspective on that than I used to, but that's a very long road of, and again, this is the Reader's Digest version, but that's a transition from having faith to completely losing faith to being able to find it again in a larger context and being able to understand it even in that smaller context of the people who are suffering from cancer.
Now, I'm not a theologian, but here's what I've heard from more than one minister, preacher, however you want to put it. And I'm not too sure if this is right or wrong answer because I don't know everything in the Bible. But my thing is, why is God denying or ignoring my prayers? And then they come back and said, by him not answering your prayer is him answering your prayer. And I'm going, wait a minute, that makes no sense at all. So I don't know what to say on that one because that's what I've been told and stuff. And again, I'm not an expert on this area, but yeah. Well, I wanted to hear a little bit of what you had to say, but my experience is by not answering, that's him answering.
I think that's exactly right. We in our limited ability to understand God's plan, sometimes that feels like the best answer. But when I go back and I look at that and I look at those events, as I lay out in the book, I actually got to understand a number of different people on a level I never would have previously. Whether it was my sister's fiance and then husband, as he passed, and how he managed to deal with that situation. His response in that situation, as they were 20, 23, 24 years old, and I was 19, his response in that and how he cared for my sister and how he dealt with the adversity of that situation. And I didn't even know it at the time, but as I look back on it, that impacts and molded the man that I've become and the husband that I've become in ways that I couldn't even articulate until I looked back at it. And one of the larger blessings, that comes out of all of this is in the spirit of true appreciation, which is essentially taking something and making it more valuable. I alluded briefly to the young man who was a baseball player alongside my son who passed of cancer. His name was Lake Bosman, and there's actually a fund in his name that continues to fund cancer research at Cure Childhood Cancer as they continue to look for a cure. And every copy of I Can Appreciate That we sell generates a portion of the proceeds are donated to that organization in their effort to continue to cure research, to cure cancer. So that becomes a blessing in and of itself, that this book can even exist, and whatever it does, if that can be some small part of, the impact that young man had on my life, if I can in any way pay that forward and do something positive out of that experience through the creation of this book or other efforts, then that is probably the literal definition of appreciation.
There we go. Awesome, Stephen. And you're the author again. I can appreciate that. Tell the listeners how they can get a copy of that. And again, the proceeds will be going to childhood cancer to help out. And if
Yep.
you can, and other social media that people can reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is available on Amazon.com as a print book, and pretty much everywhere you get ebooks. So you can just search "I Can Appreciate That" on Amazon, and you'll find it. The book itself has an Instagram account and a Facebook account, where we've created what we're calling a community of gratitude, where people can share their own stories of gratitude and connect with each other. You can just search "I Can Appreciate That" on Facebook. It's at ICAT story. I Can Appreciate That story. And it's "I Can Appreciate That" on Instagram.
All right. Appreciate it. Yeah. Here, listeners, go ahead and get you a copy, so that way you can say you got a book to read and you were able to help in the research in the from there, childhood cancer. So, all right, Stephen, man, appreciate this. It's been fun and enlightening, and I'm glad your son woke you up with this little question and changed and made you better aware of yourself. So I'm glad that you were able to do that and share with our listeners, and hopefully they can take something from this and change their ways a little bit, hopefully.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And appreciate. Now, Stephen, last thing here is, we know people are hurting and struggling. If you can come up with a positive statement here to help him get through today, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. The other gift that I got from writing this book was the absolute realization that, just like I said, nobody's normal. The other thing that I realized is that we are not alone. You're not alone in any of this. In so many of these instances, in every instance of all the stories that I tell in this book, I thought I was the only person who had ever had that experience, who had ever suffered like that, and nobody else could understand me. In talking to other people and the chance to share these stories, almost without exception, people's response to me is, "Oh my gosh, me too." The exact thing that happened to you might not have happened to me, but I understand your experience because this happened to me. And then I get to hear their story, and then they get to share. And the realization that we are not alone in any of this is life-changing, is where gratitude and appreciation actually come from, and can change everything about your life. So if I could give one piece of advice, realize that you're not alone, and reach out to other people. Be open to being reached out to by other people. Form communities, form relationships, and be with each other in this life. You're not alone.
Build your community, then turn around and help other people that need it in the future. So, Stephen, thank you for coming on. Appreciate it and everything like that. And everybody else, hey, I'm Dr. James Purdue. Hey, again, if you're coming on to replay, be sure to share us out. Okay. Someone needs some type of help, some type of inspiration, motivation, encouragement, some hope, help them persevere through life. So everyone else, do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.